Eva from Remote How here. We hope you enjoy the conference. If you're looking to take action after listening to our inspiring speakers, you are in the right place. Since 2017, Remote How has become world's #1 remote work transformation platform that helped over 400 companies all over the world make remote or hybrid work. So if you're looking for hands-on advisory or consulting from world's top remote experts, it's Remote How. If you're looking for best-in-class learning and development programs for managers, for HR professionals, or for individual contributors, it's Remote How. Last but not least, if you're looking to join a community of professionals from all over the world, it's Remote How. Today, you have the opportunity to schedule a free consultation call to review your current remote work setup and get the personalized solution how to tackle this moving forward. Succeeding in remote work is not easy, but we are here to help you make it work. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
And we are back, everyone. Welcome. If you have just joined Remote Future Summit, my name is Magda and I am MC for this year's edition of Remote Future Summit. I'm also head of communications and marketing at Remote How, and I have a pleasure to guide you throughout this two-day experience. Before we start with the first session of this blog, this is Remote Work First Aid Kit. I'm just going to give you a few brief updates. So if you were trying to join one of the networking sessions and you were not able to, we will make sure to put a few more for the next break. So stay with us and hopefully you'll be able to join networking during the next break. If you are looking for a space to chat with others or just hang out, you can also use breakout rooms on our conference platform. And hey, don't forget to join the conversation in social media under hashtag Remote Future Summit. I am here, our whole team is actually there, and we'll be happy to chat with you asynchronously. Now, without further ado, let's kick off with the second panel of Remote Future Summit 2020. I know that we have already with us Emna Ghariani. She is a co-founder and CEO of Veamly. She's a developer. It's a developer unified workspace for software engineers. As a digital well-being activist and productivity guru, she is on a mission to fix our relationship with work and to advocate for a brave new world where well-being and work-life balance are celebrated to live a fulfilling life. She also brings a hybrid model of remote work that puts people and their own well-being at the center. Emna's work has been featured on GitLab, Thrive Global, and HackerMoon. So without further ado, let me welcome Emna for a great talk about organizing your day. Over to you, Emna.
Hi, Magda. Thank you so much for this. I'm really excited to be here today. Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to share with you. You can organize your day the best way possible, especially in a remote world. Obviously, hopefully you will get some cool tips you can take home with you. One thing I would ask is feel free to throw comments on the chat or questions. I love when this is active. I don't like it when it's just a one-way thing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Bear with me because I want to make sure. It's the first time I use this platform. So give me a, here we go. Okay. Just give me a second. that to freeze in the middle of our talk. So let me start by saying who I am. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Veamly. At Veamly, we are a unified workspace for developers to help them stay in flow and easily move from into an async mode. The whole point is to help them remove interruptions, remove context switching, and help them optimize and make the most of their day. So the first thing I would love, the way we're going to structure this talk today, first we're going to set the stage. What are the things that are essential for us to be able to really have a truly organized, productive day? Then I'll give you more about actionable tips that you can take home and help you do better with it. And my computer is still freezing, so I'm sorry about that. So I'll just go ahead and start the talk. I'm sorry that the images are not on the screen. The first thing that you have to start with, the most important thing, I've been running remote for over 5 years now. And one of the most important things was to always separate my personal life from my work life. And one thing to keep in mind that every single person is different. Some people don't think, but from my experience, from the experience of my team, it is very important to figure out a way to have a focused space just for your work. And Remote How is actually a great platform to help you achieve that. So wherever your space is, you want to build that routine that you have normally if you're going to work. You know, normally you wake up in the morning, you take your shower, you have your coffee, breakfast maybe, and then you get on your commute to work. And that's kind of how your brain reacts and kicks off the day. So the way you do that in your remote world is, one, you want to have a dedicated space. Like the whole concept of like, oh, I'm chilling on the couch or on the bed or in the kitchen table is not sustainable. The thing is, you don't build the right habit. So the first step is to find a dedicated space where you really have your everything you need to do your work, your little notepad, your pen, whatever that makes you feel good, maybe a nice painting, a flower, something that creates a nice work environment for you. The most important thing is to keep it clutter-free. Whether we like it or not, whether we're organized or not, clutter really impacts our brain space and it contributes to decision fatigue. So clarity of your workspace has proven to improve your focus, but also your creativity. So that's the first step I would start with. The second thing that's very crucial, as we went into this COVID world, many people experience it more than ever, that our whole schedule gets messed up. We start sleeping late, Netflix is a distraction, your TV is a distraction, maybe you have people at home, a wife, a husband, kids, homeschooling, whatever that is. So, and that all of that impacts one of the most important things to your productivity and your day-to-day, which is the quality of your sleep. It has been proven that if you sleep less than 6 hours, it literally increases by 10 to 30% your time to exhaustion. So the quality of your sleep impacts actually your creativity, your focus, and your productivity. And you find yourself dragging tasks, feeling unproductive, and feeling unaccomplished. One of the most important things to double check if your quality of sleep is good or not is to watch out for a simple couple of things. One, just try to think. Does it take you a couple of cup of coffees to get through the beginning of your day and it's still noon? Or do you find yourself relieving stuff multiple times or checking it multiple times? Those are symptoms of your sleep quality that's really not good, and it can help, by improving it, it will help you be much more efficient during your day and help you be obviously more productive and optimize your time. Finally, the one important thing I love to say to people when they start working in a remote or when they're in a remote world is activate your 5 senses. And what I mean by that is that we as humans react to different things. So by starting thinking proactively about activating your senses, it will start you in a good mood. It will start your day in a brightened way. And what I mean by that is you think about your senses. So sight. Make sure when you wake up, you have something nice to look at, whether it's a painting or whether it's a photo or whatever that is, that literally makes you feel good when you see it. The same thing for your ears. Make sure you're listening maybe to some good music. If you don't like music, maybe it's a podcast you start with today. Whatever it is, activate the sense of listening. Same thing for your taste buds. Like have something that you enjoy. Have something nice. Drink, whether it's your morning tea or morning coffee or your morning smoothie, whatever that is, eat something nice. Anything that can help you feel good, pretty much. The same thing for the sense of smell and touch as well. Wear clothes that you like, don't like stay in your pajamas and start your day because like it might feel, oh no, it's so easy, I'm just gonna get on my computer. But over the long run, it really impacts your mood and your mental health and obviously your productivity and the way you use your time. So make sure to activate all your senses and do something nice in the morning. Like we don't have to stick to, oh, I open my Slack right away on my phone or my email or I jump right in. Try to leave the first hour of your day just for you. For example, personally, I play the piano in the morning. I love it. It helps to relax me. It helps me. I play like for barely 5 to 10 minutes, but that sound just helps me feel so good. The second thing I do as well is working out in the morning. So for me, it was very important to leave my house to go work out. Obviously in COVID, it was not easy in the beginning, but now I'm excited. I'm in San Francisco. The gyms are reopened. I like going in the morning because by 9 a.m., I already feel I've done something good about my day. So I'm on a good streak for the rest of the day to be productive and efficient because I feel, oh, one item of my checklist is done. So these are the essentials to get you pretty much started. You want to set your workspace right. You want to create that routine, activate your 5 senses, really address all these incremental habits can help you feel so much better about yourself and help you be more productive. And finally, do something you love in the morning, brighten your day, and most importantly, do not forget that sleep is an essential component to help you stay organized, productive, and healthy, most importantly. So, now, let's move into, I'm really sorry about the presentation, literally my whole computer is freezing, by the way. So, I did present amazing graphics for you guys, but literally it's that. So, now what I want to talk about is how can you take this to practice? How can you really start incrementally implementing better habits to organize your day now that you have the basics set up right? So one of the first things I want you to think about is to practice self-awareness for how you're using your time. The reality of it is, when we get started in the day, we are opted in by default in the incredible amount of information that surrounds us, whether that's a meeting, whether that's all your Slack messages or your comments on particular Jira, Asana, Trello, whatever you use, and the emails you might be getting, depending on your role in the company. And so being opted in by default makes it that the first meeting ends up feeling like lasting the whole day. So what you want to do is literally think ahead about how you're spending your day. So the first thing to do in order to help with that is think about the structure of your day and all the interruptions that happen through it. And the biggest interrupter today are notifications. So I personally have been notification free for almost 2 years now. And I am the CEO of a company, and this is not my first company. And yes, I have important messages to get to, whether on Slack, whether on different comments on our different tools, or on my email, and I have a lot of meetings, and yet I'm able to manage. Because today notifications, what they do to our brain is simply, it's an aggression. And what happens, it creates this fake sense of urgency and a fear of missing out as well, that doesn't let us even think about what we need to do, we just react to it. So what I strongly recommend for you to do is to simply remove notifications, at least at the time you're going into focus and into work. Keep your phone away from you. Like for me, even if my phone's not away, it's always face down, because even without notifications, it still lights up when a phone call comes in. So, and also I get system notifications, there's no way for me to deactivate them. So these things distract you, and this happens on average every 11 minutes daily, and takes you about 23 minutes to focus again. And what's worse is that those interruptions impact also the way we self-distract. Today, because of that, because our brain is tired, we self-distract every 3.5 minutes on average. So one of the actions to take to help you be super optimized is to remove notifications. The second thing I would do is to try to automate as many tasks as possible for yourselves. And what I mean by that, for example, even like when talking about activating your 5 senses, if you have maybe a Google Home or an Alexa or even your phone, schedule your music to start in the morning without you having to get started with it. Schedule your coffee to get started as well. Remove as many tedious tasks as you can. Same thing within your work environment. Today, we have so many different tools like Zagury and others to help you pretty much easily process information on a daily basis without you having to act on it. It might take you 2, 3 hours, maybe 5 to set up for the first time, but then it will make your life so much easier. So anything you need to be looking at, any status change that's important for you. Like for me, one of the things I track obviously is our requests, right? So I want to make sure I see that right away. I don't have to go look for it. So I automate that so that information gets to me before I get to it. Let me pause for a second. I'm seeing somebody in chat. I can relate. I'm struggling with notifications. I check my phone first thing in the morning and it's just bad. It is absolutely very bad. So a quick tip you can do, get in the habit of putting your phone away in the morning. Don't sleep with your phone next to you or under your pillow or on your bed table. Just put it even in another room. If you live, in a big place, if you live even in the studio, put it as far away as you can from you. So it forces you to get up in the morning and do something else. The other thing, also one of the good tips, is to create another habit to help you not get into the bad phone habit. So, for example, if you want to work out in the morning, sleep in your workout clothes. That way you jump up and you're good. Have your water bottle and you just go right in. Whether you're leaving home to exercise, whether you run, whether you bike, whether you go to the gym today, or whether you're doing your virtual home workout, doesn't matter. Just replace that bad habit with a good habit. That's the best way for you to help get over it. So I really want to, if you give me 5 seconds, I really want to shut down the keynote because I really want to share the graphics with you guys. By the way, feel free to throw questions for me because again, it's even better when you have and we have an interactive session, obviously. So that'll be really exciting. Otherwise, I'll continue obviously with the rest of the talk. So, all right. The next thing, so now let's recap. We're starting our day, we have the basics right. Now we're starting to set up a workflow. So the first thing, get rid of notifications. Don't make them come to you and aggress your brain, and try to automate as many tedious tasks as possible. The other thing I recommend as well is at the end of every day, we'll talk about planning in a second, but one thing I recommend for you all to do is simply to try to shut down those tabs. And I know some of us sometimes have 100 tabs open. And I want you to take a second to think about that. Do you ever get back to these tabs? Do you ever get back to that article that you left open sometimes for 30, 60 days you won't because you wanted to read it? You probably don't, ever. And if you do, then, I'm reading the chat, sorry. So if you do, it's very, very rare. So what I recommend to do, first, clean your clutter virtually as well, not only on your desk. So when you clear your clutter virtually, maybe if you already have 160 tabs open, well, take the time to really address them and shut them down and pull out the information you need and put it in your digital notepad or transform it into tasks for yourself. So one of the things I do, I have my own Trello board for me as a personal Trello board. It has some of my work tasks, but also my personal stuff, the stuff I want to do for myself, whether it's a book I want to read or a new music song I want to learn. So it's an important part of setting up the way for you to be organized. Now, the next step after this is using the incredible tool of calendar blocking. So calendar blocking will help you truly make the most out of your day. And what I mean by that is you create a second calendar besides your main calendar for your actual tasks to help you stay in flow. And so what you do is you look at your meetings, you try to talk to your team and coordinate so your meetings are all clustered at the same time. And then what you want to do is you want to create different time slots for whatever tasks you have. So if you are a developer, you want to create a time slot for coding. If you are doing any other, individual contributor in any other team, whatever it is that needs your focus time, you want to block time for it. So the way I recommend it is once you're done with your personal time in the morning, that helps you set the day right. That's 1 hour. Then you want to put the time for 30 minutes to an hour to do your collaboration, whether in your emails, your different messages. Then you shut everything down. Hopefully by this time you shut off notifications and start going into flow. Block 2 hours at a time because scientifically it's proven you only get in flow and deep focus at 2 hours at a time. Then schedule also your breaks. It's very important to have the time for you to take your break. Sometimes, especially when we're working from home, we go in without realizing for 5 hours at a time because we jump from an inflow task to collaboration and we start context switching and we don't take time to even stand up and move around, which hurts obviously your health and impacts your productivity and your day. Then finally, what I would do is at the end of that day, so like you block your break and then again 2-3 hours of inflow, and then schedule literally time to help you plan for the next day. And it's very, very important. So that way you don't find yourself up to date by default again. So with calendar blocking, the most important rule is don't take it as a rigid, strict rule, meaning that if the day you didn't do it, don't be hard on yourself, be like, oh shoot, it's screwed now, I'm again falling into bad habits. It takes time to build the right habit of implementing this, and it takes about 4 weeks on average. But this is one of the best tools to help you stay in flow, and you don't need any technology, you literally need just your calendar. Color coding helps for some people, so it helps you really see when is your inflow time versus your collaboration time. So Still trying to open the presentation, I can't believe this. All right, so that's what I would do. Finally, after that, you want to be able to track how you're using your time. It's an important thing. So practicing going back and looking what you did or what you did not, you'll see how it will change completely your sense of accomplishment. Because many times we feel like we haven't done enough. Or if you've done too much, because now we're adding, like working from home adds all of a sudden 2 extra hours a day, but it still feels you didn't get to the right tasks because again, you got distracted, you got sucked into something else, you end up working overnight and end up burning out. It does not help. So accomplish everything you have to accomplish. Don't make it worse. Just stop there and start over the next day to help you do better. I'm trying to get my manager on board with this. Any tips how to start the conversation? Very good question. So the best way to talk to your manager is with data. Because what happens in the world of remote, one of the biggest frustrations of managers is they really have no idea what's going on the outside. And yes, theoretically, there should be a trust relationship. Yes, but even if trust is there, it's human, and all they're going to look at is tasks being accomplished. They cannot have an estimation sometimes of how long it takes you or of your work environment. So the best way to get it started, and that's how I do my team, I ask them to give me literally data, like, how is your work environment? Do you have everything you need? And then I ask them literally, how long does it take to accomplish a particular task? And if they ask for something, they bring the why with data. So here's why I need to block this time. Here's why I need to be in flow. So a good manager with data will definitely help you do that. Because if they understand truly how badly it impacts you, then they want the best, hopefully, for you and for the business. Hopefully that answers the question. Please feel free to comment more if you want more direction there. I guess all these habits cannot be applied all at once. Wonderful. Yes. So that was going to be my next point, actually. So you want to get started with simply 1 or 2 things. And that was going to be actually my call to action for all of you, is to take 1 or 2 things to get started with. Because you want to start with baby steps. You don't want to get started with everything at once, because the reality of it is it's going to take time for it to stick. So the easy parts to get started with is 1, to implement the basics in terms of like checking in the quality of your sleep, making sure that when you, the day before, you know what's happening in the next day. Schedule also your breaks. It's important. And that, with calendar blocking, is the best thing to go implement. So literally you can leave today the conference, go in, look at your next day, schedule your different inflow time, then put your break, your exercise time, even your Netflix time. Doesn't matter. This is your calendar to help you really help balance and do the most out of your day. All right. Any other questions? All right, wonderful. So I'm going to summarize. So in summary, the first thing
This is Magda. We have a few more questions that you might be not seeing because they are on our platform. So
Sure.
there is one question about using calendar. So do you use the same calendar for personal and professional life?
Can you repeat that? You cut up a little bit, Magda, for me. Sorry.
Do you use the same calendar for personal and professional life?
Yes. So it's within your calendar, whether you use Google or Outlook, you can create multiple calendars. So for me, I have the main calendar, which is my Veamly calendar, and then I have my what I call Emna Focus calendar. So whenever you create a new calendar invite, you can select which calendar you want it to go on. And I personally color code them because when I look at my calendar, it's important. It's like I immediately know what is what, and I immediately know what my day is going to look like. If you have one color for everything, you're not going to be able to separate what are your actual me tasks versus your team tasks.
That's a great tip. We also have one question about allocating different tasks during different times of the day. So do you have any tips on, for example, do coding in the morning and then after in the evening maybe do documentation? What's your take on that?
So there is no one size fits all. That's the first thing I can tell you. Some people are morning people, some people are night people. And for me, I was both in my life. I used to be a night owl and now I'm a morning person. The most important thing, whatever that is, pick the time where you feel you're the most awake, productive, and energetic to do your inflow tasks. Ideally, we sleep better at night, so I don't recommend to really switch your work schedule from that perspective. Like night sleep is much better than day sleep, and you'll be more rested and will impact everything we talked about. So ideally, you want to have your inflow tasks, let's say coding, in between the check-in, what I call the check-in hours. And the check-in hours usually are, between 8 to 9 a.m. That's kind of where you have your stand-up. That's kind of when you check your different collaboration tools. And if you're working, again, in a remote global team in different time zones, it's the same. It doesn't matter. You just need to communicate with your team, right? So then I would check in after, at lunchtime. For me, that's kind of like I get out of the inflow mode. And then finally, at the end of the day, you check in again, your collaboration tools, and you plan for the next day.
Cool. Thank you so much for answering the questions. And now I leave you to wrap up the session since we should be closing it very soon.
Yes, thank you, Magda. Actually, I was just going to summarize the four main things we talked about. The first thing, set the stage. Some people might find this silly, as I'm seeing from some of the comments, but it is scientifically proven that when you are in a good mood, when you are happy, then you'll have the most productive day. It does not matter if you organize your day if you wake up in a simply on the wrong foot or in a bad mood. So it's very important to set up the stage for yourself. The second thing that we mentioned, and that is again the sleep aspect, is very important. Do your check-ins, check if you're rereading stuff, check if you need 3 coffees before you get to noon, and then you'll know how good or bad your quality of sleep is. Calendar blocking is an incredible tool for you to help you organize the best your day, and it keeps you in check. And most importantly, at the end of the day, when you look back at your calendar, you'll feel that you got stuff done and feel better about yourself. And make sure to schedule your breaks, but also the stuff that has nothing to do with work, which is again your workout, your book, your social happy hour, whatever that is. So, and finally, most importantly, view of your time, plan for the next day, and start one habit at a time. I'm going to read the last one. I usually feel drained after meetings. Most of them can be replaced with email or Slack message. What's your sign that a conversation needs a meeting instead? All right. So the thing is, each team is different. So some teams are really good at communicating in async mode. So, and that can be very good and a good habit to implement. And some people are just not good without meetings. What you want to do for us, the way we address it, is we have certain meetings that are there daily to discuss the quick things, and we structure them. So, and even if you're not managing your team, you can bring this back to your team. So if we do our stand-ups, we have 3 things we cover. And then we have a report that goes in in a particular Slack channel about what happened there. So even the people who did not attend can know what's going on. The second thing is communicate If you are like, if at the end of the week you see you had 20 meetings, go back to your manager and try to reduce it with them and ask why you're having that many meetings. I cannot give a generic advice because really each team is different, and there's the managerial aspect of things that is different from a company to another. Review of the day, something to implement on my side.
Hi, Emna.
Thank you so much, everybody. The rest of the conference, it was a pleasure to be with you.
Thanks, Emna. A lot of useful and information that I guess any remote worker can use on how to better organize their working days. A lot of information on things like time boxing and reviewing your day and making sure you actually find the time for the things that matter and the things that keep you at a good shape mentally and physically. So I hope you managed to take some notes. A reminder here to continue the conversation on our social media under #RemoteFutureSummit. We are sharing some of the coolest mentions, some of the coolest stories on our platform, on the main screen, on the dashboard. So make sure to be a part of this. Now, moving on, we have a very amazing female who will be sharing with us her story or her company's story on how they moved into remote environment, how they completely changed and shifted their programs and products. So a few words about Alice. She is the CEO of the Veamly, providing education tools and access to capital to entrepreneurs in Europe. She started 8 years ago with 2 co-founders with a clear mission: making a vibrant, ambitious, and welcoming tech ecosystem in Europe. Since COVID, the Veamly closed their offices in London, Berlin, and Paris and switched to a fully online model. She will be sharing with you how you can create a strong educational program online, or really move any product or a service online, how to build real bonds among the community, and a feeling of belonging while being remote. So give it up, put your virtual hands, send us some love emojis, and let's welcome Alice on our virtual stage. Over to you, Alice.
Hello, thank you very much, Magda. Hello, everybody. Yes, so I'm sharing with you a little presentation because I think it can help. If you see it, yes, okay, cool. I can even share with you in the chat the link of this presentation because it's a Google Doc, so everyone can see it, and the chat is here, and poof, tack, right there. Send us a message. How can I share with you the screen? Okay, I can't right now, I think, because I have a private interface, not exactly the same from you, but anyway. I hope you're doing good. So we have 30 minutes together, and I would like to share with you how it's been to totally switch from an offline model accompanying entrepreneurs, hundreds of entrepreneurs in Europe, to moving online and moving fully to a remote model. So just a few words about who I am, so you just have an idea of what we built at the Veamly. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Veamly. And at the Veamly, basically, we believe that anyone can become an entrepreneur. So we started this adventure 8 years ago with 2 other co-founders, Nicolas and Usama. And basically what we want to provide is an amazing environment for ambitious entrepreneurs, wherever they come from, providing education, tools, and access to capital. And as you can see on the pictures, I really wanted to show you that we've been doing so with a lot of offline meetings happening in Paris, London, and Berlin. Initially, we started in Paris, but after 3 years, we expanded to London and Berlin as well. So as of today, we've accompanied more than 700 startups. 200 are still alive, and some of them you may know, like Algolia, Payfit, Fretlink, Agricool, or among many others. All right. And most of our educational content is given to our entrepreneurs first. Then we record it online, we record it and we put it on YouTube. And on YouTube, we reach 8 million views and 70K subscribers. So you get the main vision of what is my company, the family, and how we've been working as of today. A lot of events, or a lot of amazing speakers who come on stage, and even the French president, Emmanuel Macron, and Sheryl Sandberg, and Program, and amazing people who comes to our stages and shares their knowledge to the entrepreneurs. And here are just a few startups who are part of the family's portfolio. Okay, enough with this result. You understood. We were very, very, very focused offline. And when COVID happened, we had to reinvent ourselves overnight. And I can tell you, it hasn't been easy at all. So there is one specific program that I'm going to be focusing on. It is Gold Up. So what is Gold Up? So at the family, we accompany entrepreneurs, okay? And as you may know, 95% of these entrepreneurs are male. And even if I am the CEO of the family, and even if I am a woman, we only have 5% women knocking at the door to be accompanied by the family. And that's a pity, and that's a shame. So I tried to understand why, and we decided to create a dedicated program called Gold Up. So it was just for women. And I'm against this. For philosophically, it's a problem because I don't want to create ghettos for women. I think we should melt and mix and okay, but it doesn't happen. So let's try a dedicated program for women only. And we started last year, and it used to happen like that. 50 women selected on their motivation. Every Saturday for 5 weeks, they come to the family and they get to learn how to start their own business. And I'm not talking about building an amazing scalable startup. I'm talking about first making a profitable business online. This is the first step because I think we need to put a step in the door, and I think ambition can grow afterwards, okay? So this is Gold Up, you get it, a program for female entrepreneurs in French because I wanted to start locally. And this event used to happen physically, right? So since last year, since June 2019, we've been accompanying more than 150 women, a lot of women, many women, and some of them actually joined the family afterwards because they had some bullish and ambitious ideas that we wanted to accompany among the family. When COVID happened, it would break my heart to stop Gold Up, among many things. So I'm just focusing on this specific program because I think here in the switch that we've operate for Gold Up from the offline to the online, there are some key learnings that I wanted to share with you because I think they can be enlightening if you are managing communities online and if you have no other choices than talking to your customers or talking to your community of users online. There are tons of steps that I've been learning that can be useful for you as well that I wanted to share with you. All right? So this is the main goal of this presentation. Sharing with you the 6 key discoveries from switching overnight from an online to an offline, from an offline to an online program, okay? So the key number one, it's one of the discoveries I've made, has been this one. The level of the focus and concentration of the participants at the online session of Gold Up was much higher. Why? This is the first thing. I was pretty sure of many things. I was pretty sure that if we would go online for this specific program, we would lose this chit-chat talk moment, this magic moment, the lunch, all these conversations that are happening naturally, human to human, physically. And I was like, we're going to lose this, and we're going to lose this, what creates the magic of a program like that. Because you know that starting a company, creating your own business is not about the techniques. It's not about knowing the how-to, because the how-to is on Google, is everywhere. But it's more about the self-confidence. It's more about feeling that you can be able to actually do it and overcoming the fear of action, right? So I was afraid that if we move online, we would lose the magic of this program. But the first thing I discovered is that the first thing, the really important thing is that when you provide webinars, and you've all been to some webinars, and we are experimenting a webinar, actually, the magic is that you are much more focused to what I'm saying, rather than if you were in a room right now with me. Why? Because it's like on TV. You see me, you are not distracted by the noise around. You are not distracted by the people breathing loudly. You are not distracted by the fact that maybe other people are watching you. You are not distracted by the fact that you have to behave in a certain way to make sure that you are normal or you fit in the group. You are at home. You are comfortable watching me and listening to me. And actually, your concentration is much more important than if you were in a room. So this is something that, okay, I see something interesting. I see a comment. There is someone saying, to be honest, I can be distracted by looking at other websites. Sorry. Yes, my dear, you are right. It is true. But in the context, imagine that you are part of a program and you have paid for this program and you really want to get the most out of this program. I'm telling you, you are listening to what I'm saying. Maybe this context with a free event, you can come and you can take whatever you want. It's less engaging in a way, because for you the interest is not as important as it is for them. But of course there is a hidden hypothesis. It is that the people are here because they've paid for your product, or they've been engaged since the beginning. But anyway, good remark, thank you. So anyway, you can shut down the computer like, yes, of course you are free. And that is a good thing actually, Olivier, because you are free. So if you are here, you choose to be here. That's what I mean. Freedom doesn't mean less engagement. It means that you've chosen to be here. All right. So the first learning is that actually the girls were much more concentrated. And so good for me, because the content was absorbed much better, okay? First thing. So this, I didn't know it would happen. It happened. Second thing, all the rules and the schedule, my program basically, the program at Gold Up, it's how to start your business online. So to give you just briefly the program, day one, it's about introspection, discovering my own why, what do I want to do, why do I want to do it, and embracing a real problem a problem that is concrete, a problem that is observed with data, a problem that is growing. Okay, so this is the first thing. The second day, we're talking about business models and all the different options. The third day, we're about prototyping and automatization. The fourth day, we are on selling. And the fifth day, we are on iterating and getting feedback from the clients. Okay, and it all happens on a scale of 10 days. Okay, so this is the program. And the thing is, because they are behind their laptop, because they feel that they are alone in their own localization, they are actually overcoming this distance by following the rules that I'm giving to them. And this is totally different from when they are all in the same room. Because when they are all in the same room, especially for French people, they love to go against what the teachers say. They love to show that they have a critical sense, you know. We love to debate. We cut the head of our kings in French, you know. We love to be against. It's like a sense of showing that you are intelligent in a way, right? So in that case, I mean, when they are in their own home, when they are watching an online program, a live and online program, they want to feel that they are part of the group. So they are really not discussing, they are not debating the deadlines and the rules that I'm giving to them. That means that if your program is good, given in a remote way, you will be able to experiment it much more profoundly than when you were in the physical space. Second discovery, all right? Third discovery. The third discovery is that actually, I've discovered that being away from it, being apart from each other, Gold Up managed to unlock the mental barrier much more easily. And I've seen the girls from Gold Up on the very first day, while we were just getting to know each other, when we were putting them in little groups of 4 people, I've seen girls opening up, showing the reality of their life, expressing their dreams, their beliefs, where they want to go, why are they here, and really creating strong bonds. And even some of them, because I could come and just watch from time to time, and even cry. And I'm not saying that crying is good or crying is bad. It's not the point. It's just a signal that the truth of the exchange and the authenticity of the exchange is real, is really here. Why? Why being away from each other, being working remotely would make the relationship more authentic? This is really a question I asked myself, because I could see the difference between the online version and the offline version, and I was surprised. And I just have little answers to give to you. Is that I think when you're home and you're committing to an online course that is something important for you, you mix both of you mix the best things. You mix the safe place of your environment. You're comfortable on your couch, and meanwhile you are addressing a key topic from this comfortable zone, so you can be much more true. That might be the answer I found. I'm not sure it's the right one, but I've seen this difference, and I've seen how much more authentic the participants were in their exchange. The fourth rule that I've seen is that, the fourth discovery, is that collaboration during Gold Up became really efficient. So of course you are here during remote how, and you've seen that actually there are tons of good tips to work efficiently when you are apart from each other. It's much more written. and you don't lose time in stupid meetings, and you can be efficient. And actually, this time that you used to lose in the subway, you can now take it for yourself, doing yoga, for instance, so you feel much more distressed, and that's cool. But I'm not talking about that, actually. I'm talking more about something else, is that because, and especially during this gold obsession, what I've seen is that they were mixed for the right reason. So actually, it's my fifth point. So this point is related to my fifth point. So I've seen this. I've discovered that the collaboration between the participant of Gold Up online was much more efficient than the one who used to do it offline. And I think the reason is because of this one. Because you have less biases when you select the people with who you want to work with when you are online. What does it mean? Again, when you are in a physical space, the way you will choose the person you will speak to and you will network with and you will have a chit-chat talk is not at all based on their values. You don't know their values. It's not at all based on their mission in life. You don't know their mission in life. It's more based on the attitude, on the behavior, maybe on the way they look, this kind of superficial things. Versus if you manage a community online, the beauty of this is that you can make the participant feel informed. You can ask for data. You can ask really intimate questions, as we do with the participant. We ask them, what are your values? Why are you fighting? What are you fighting for? What are your dreams? What are your goals? And you have this. You can look at this, and before choosing anyone to start collaborating with, you can choose the people you're going to do the exercise with and to do the workshop with, and every kind of exercise we are giving to the girls based on that, meaning that you will choose the people on really much more interesting criteria than if you were in the real world. That's for me, it's important. It's not anecdotal. It's really important. It means that we can actually create collaborations based on less biases. And for me, this is a big win. This is a big win, especially when you have a group of women who are so diverse, because we have women coming from really very different backgrounds. And the sixth discovery that I've made was that actually it's not because we are remote, it's not because we are online that we don't value the moment we spend together. But if you really follow the different steps of creating a marvelous experience for your community online, then you won't have to organize yourself to fight to make things happen in real life. People will be excited and people will want to meet on their own, organizing in a more organic way their own moments together. And that's exactly what happened with the girls of Gold Up, who are always, all the time, meeting outside without me being the central organizer of this. See what I mean? All right. And as a conclusion, I want to tell you that this presentation was really focused because we didn't have a lot of time, and I wanted to share with you precise discoveries on a specific experience. I'm also the CEO of the Family, which is a group of hundreds of startups, and I have the entrepreneurs every day on the phone, okay? And everybody right now is asking themselves the same question. No one knows where we are going right now. The environment and the context is uncertain. And the ones pretending that everything is back to normal and we are already in a post-COVID times and we will all go back to the old ways we used to, they are wrong. It won't happen like that. But on the other side, we don't know what it will be made of. And actually, if there is one thing I wanted to share with you is don't expect someone to come with a guidebook and with a new concept and with a magic solution. Build your own framework. Everybody needs a stable framework, but no one knows which one is the good one. So experiment your own framework. Try new things. And that's, for me, that's the best way to finally find, and I think there is no final point, but to find your own way of working during this very special period. Voila. So I have a lot of. Yes, thank you, Magda.
I'm going to help you out because I know we have a lot of platforms and places where questions pop up. So I just grabbed a few that were made by our participants. So to start with, there was a question. What do you find is the family's magic number of participants for a productive meeting?
Sorry. What is this question? I didn't.
What is the magic number of participants for a productive meeting?
Good question. A productive meeting, meaning like you have to collaborate and work together. For me, it's no more than 4. But it's really based on my experience. It's no more than 4. Otherwise, and everybody, I mean, it's already like we know who's doing what. Like everybody owns their own territories already. But if you need to brainstorm, for me, I mean, a Zoom call, if you don't have the choice, you do a Zoom call. But if you need to brainstorm, I would really recommend actually to meet in real. I mean, it's not because we are in this new remote phase that we cannot, if we are in the same localization, take advantage of an hybrid model. And I know myself, for instance, and I know that to brainstorm, I can obviously do it on a Zoom call, but I'd rather do it around a good coffee with someone in the same room.
Yeah, for sure. Nothing replaces a real coffee, especially the smell of it. People are loving your energy, so thanks for sharing this with us as well.
Thank you.
And there are a lot of questions coming in right now. So, and I like this one, so I'm going to be a little bit more towards this question and read it to you. Do you think newly built online relationships are stronger or weaker than classic offline ones?
I think they are different, and it's actually in the geek world. It's not new, okay? I have startups in the family with co-founders who never met, and they've been working together for years. They never met for real, and they met once during a weekend that we organized for the fellows of the family. And the first reaction of one of the guys was, "Oh, damn, you're short." Because he didn't know his co-founder was short, you know? So the thing is, this in the geek world is not new. It used to be something that could happen, okay? Now it's happening for everybody. So it's not only a certain category of people. And what I see for me is, and maybe it's my entrepreneurial side to see everything in an optimistic way, but it's a lot of opportunities to find the right people based on real criteria, and not the one who are living right next door, you know. And so it means having much more diverse people as well, with different backgrounds, different cultures. And you know, when we switched the model of Golda from offline to online. We had girls from Belgium, Switzerland, Monaco, and even the Caribbean islands. I mean, they were all French, so I'm limited by the French-speaking people, but they were coming for the right reasons. They were not coming because they used to live not far from the school, if I may. So you have this opportunity of diversity and this opportunity of finding people based on and connecting and bonding with people based on common values and common dreams. And so for me, this level of bonds, may it be on Zoom or in real life, are much more valuable than the ones based on attitudes and just I know you because you are in my surrounding, you know. But in the end, if you have the opportunity to meet someone for real, we're human. We're not bots. We will still love this moment as well. But it's just that this new context give us some opportunities to connect with people who will be much more relevant for us to connect with.
Thank you, Alice. I think what you just mentioned is a perfect wrap up for the session and for what you were sharing, is to look for, in the current context, we can't really influence it. Like, we can't change the situation with COVID, but we can look for the opportunities. And I think that is what you have done with the family. And thanks for sharing that story today with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. And if you want to connect with me, my email is simple. It's alice@thefamily.co.
For sure. Yeah, as I'm saying and repeating everyone here, let's continue the conversations asynchronously. I know you're active on different social media platforms, so I'm sure people will find a way to reach out to you. The next session is something I'm really looking forward to, because it's, again, a topic that I think everyone feels like, yeah, I know it. You know, like, I know how to organize my day. I know how to thrive in a remote space. I know this and that because I have been doing this for some time already. But I think the next session is going to completely blow your mind and change your perspective about appearing in the online meetings. Now, with the current context, as we keep on repeating this, we are all forced to participate in more and more virtual meetings. So we have to make sure we actually master the skills of appearing in them and making sure that we are heard. Our thoughts and thoughts are heard and we are truly present. So without further ado, let me introduce all of you to our next speaker, Spencer Waldron. He has spent most of the past 10 years helping leaders and organizations have more effective meetings through better presenting, storytelling, and video communication. And I've seen it for myself. So now I won't keep him for myself only. I'm gonna invite Spencer here on our virtual stage. And well, Spencer, the mic is all yours. Show us how to appear in virtual meetings.
Hi, thank you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about confidence, because we all have this little voice in the back of our heads that tells us to be cautious, to be safe, to not do this, not do that, and definitely not to speak up in a meeting. And that's what I want to talk about today. How do we quieten that voice that stops us doing so many things? Now, 25 years ago, I was lucky enough to come across a piece of text that completely changed so many things in my life. And it was written in 1927, but it's every bit as relevant to today. And I want to pull out just a couple of things that are relevant, I think, to how we can be more confident. So the first is this: if you compare yourself with other people, you will always become vain or bitter, because always there are greater and lesser persons than yourself. And this is so true when it comes to speaking. If you spend the 10 minutes before you're about to give a talk or to give a presentation or to speak up in a meeting, if you spend that 10 minutes worrying about, okay, what are other people going to think about what I say, or everybody's so experienced in the room, or the other speakers are really experienced, then that takes you down a path that erodes your confidence. Now, the second thing I want to bring out is, if I can get it, there we go. So the second thing I want to bring out is this, where it says, do not distress yourself with imaginings, because most fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. And that is the same thing, because what it's telling us is when you distress yourself with imagining, that voice that tells us to be safe, to be cautious, is even louder when we're tired or we're lonely or we're vulnerable or we're stressed. So keep those two things in mind as we go through how we can be more confident in meetings. Because when you look at a meeting, it's really, when I think about meetings, it feels a bit like this. Everybody is super confident, dropping knowledge bombs, and I have something I want to say, but I'm not sure when can I jump in. And I don't want to interrupt or be rude, but I'm still like, I want to find that moment where I can jump in. And what happens a lot is maybe I don't catch that moment and the opportunity passes me by. Now, the good news is this is the same for absolutely everybody, because it's directly related to how our brains work. So our brains have had millennia of biological development that are trying to keep us safe the whole time. And on the savannah, that was really great because there were lots of things that were going to harm us. But in today's meeting environment, for example, that's not doing us such a good thing. And what we see is our brain has 3 filters that it looks to the outside world: risk avoidance, reward, and novelty. And what we see is risk avoidance is really powerful in our subconscious. And that's what's responsible for that little voice inside you before you're going to do an important talk that makes you feel like, oh my God, I can't do this and it's all going to go wrong. So how do we get over this? Now, everybody has this feeling. It doesn't matter how experienced you are. When I think about, I've been, the last 10 years speaking from stages and doing virtual talks and all this kind of stuff, but I still suffer from imposter syndrome. I still have those moments before I give a talk where I'm like, really? Like, I doubt what I'm going to say. Or, I'm in that meeting and I don't talk because it passes me by. But this is kind of liberating in a sense, because we're all the same. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO or the most junior person. It doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert. We have the same biological thing going on inside our head. So that means it's a skill that we can train. It's like a muscle that we can make stronger and faster and become second nature. So how do we do it? How do we train that confidence muscle? Well, for me, it's these 3 main things. And the most important of which is positive self-talk. And that starts with finding your motto, the phrase or few words that gets you through those tough times. Now, mine, I found quite by accident. So this is a photograph of me in 1999 when I did a backpacking trip. And you can't tell from this photo, but I remember very clearly sitting on those steps and feeling like, you know what, I feel confident now about this whole traveling thing. And I'd been through so many ups and downs in the weeks leading to the point where that photograph was taken. When I was thinking about getting on that plane and leaving Manchester and flying to India with not much more than a bag on my back and a bit of money in my pocket and no plan, it was super scary. And throughout those 2 years, I kind of developed, without realizing it, this motto. And the motto was, it's always harder to think about something than to actually do it. And this continued throughout my life. It's the same when you're about to get on a stage and do a talk. It doesn't matter what it is, but that was what got me through the hard time, that got me to kind of ignore that voice. Now, what we need to deal with is we all have this inner voice, this inner demon that's whispering to us in a meeting, don't talk now. Sarah's talking and look how she's commanding the room. Like, everybody's hanging off every word that she says, and she's more senior than you. So you don't talk up. And then somebody else gets into the conversation and maybe starts to take it to a different direction. And you feel the pressure that you want to say something, but then this inner voice is saying, yeah, but don't talk now because it's going to sound really weird. It's going off to a different direction. So again, we need to think about, okay, how can we get rid of that voice? Now, what I discovered over the years is this. So this is me on my first ever talk in front of 200 people back in 2015. Now, 15 minutes before that started, me and that demon version of Spencer were behind that stage. And that voice was saying to me, are you serious? You work for a presentation company and you're about to stand up and do a presentation about giving presentations. You must be crazy. And again, what I discovered is like, okay, so that voice made it much harder in the beginning than, I went on the stage and I did an okay presentation. For sure, it wasn't my best one. I've learned a lot of lessons since then. But again, it was that same thing that was starting to kind of happen. So I decided I wanted to try and change it. And one of the things I started learning about through storytelling was, how does the brain work? How do we make decisions? What's going on? And I suddenly understood that emotions and feelings are two different things. So we have this conscious brain. It's, the cerebral cortex. It's the brain that you're using right now to think, who is this guy? Should I listen to him? Is what he's saying useful? And that's where our feelings sit. Now, our emotions sit in our unconscious brain, and we only have 6 of them. And they're these ones here. And an emotion is a physical set of responses that happen in our body. So if we take fear, for example, what happens when we're scared? Heart beats faster, sweaty palms, adrenaline in the blood system, all those things that make us kind of fall to pieces before we do something like that. Now, what happens with that physical thing in our body is our modern brain, our cerebral cortex, interprets what's happening to the body, and it's thousands of years of biology says, okay, it's time to run away. This is scary. Let's not do this. But if you look here at all of the feelings that are associated with that set of physical instructions, then we start to see something that can help us get past this voice that kind of gives us a hard time. Because if we zoom into fear, we see that excitement and fear, it's the same thing, right? Because what happens when we're excited? Our heart beats faster, sweaty palms, adrenaline in the blood system. It's just that this time, we're not doing something scary like giving a talk or a presentation. We're actually, maybe on a roller coaster or about to kiss somebody for the first time. So the only difference between fear and excitement is the story that we tell ourselves. So instead of listening to that voice that is saying, don't do this, everything can go wrong, your mouth's going to go dry, you're going to forget what you're going to say, we can swap this inner demon for a angel version. And that angel version, that voice in your head will say, hey, it's pretty cool I get to do this. Maybe I get to help somebody. Maybe I get to change how somebody does something. Or if it's in a meeting, maybe I get to help a teammate or help the outcome of the project. So it's this difference from focusing on what are people going to say about me to what actually is the outcome and what am I going to do? How am I going to help that process? So it's two very different things. And if you add that together with your motto of what you want to say, or to remind you to do that, it becomes really powerful. So my motto was obviously this, it's harder to think about something than to actually do it, but you can find your own motto that will help you do this. So that's positive self-talk. Then the next bit is about planning and preparation, which is also kind of critical because we want to get to a point where we say, okay, I'm prepared as I can possibly be, because that will give you confidence. And if you think about speaking up in a meeting, I think one of the best quotes I've ever seen was from Mark Twain when he said, it usually takes me more than 3 weeks to prepare an impromptu speech. And I love that because it applies to a meeting. If you're going to speak up in a meeting or if you're going to do a presentation for sure, don't just start to think about what you're going to say when you come into that meeting. Take time beforehand to plan and prepare and to think about what's the best thing that I can do. And if you take, a high performance athlete like Usain Bolt here, he didn't just turn up one day and become the fastest person on the planet. There were countless hours of training and preparation that went into it. And he also had a motto. His motto was for a better future, because in those times when his inner demon was telling him to stop or not to get out of bed and go train, that's what got him through, for a better future. So think about how you can do training and preparation, because it's the same when we're a presenter. If you look at Steve Jobs, we enjoyed the amazing keynotes that he would do at Macworld. We didn't see the 4 months of preparation that went into what he was going to say, or the 4 months of planning how the lighting was going to be on the stage, or the 4 months of, that exact moment when he would take the phone out of his pocket. So planning and preparation is super important. So let's go a stage deeper and look at planning. What can we start to do if we're going to go into this meeting? Well, I always start with asking a whole load of questions. Who's going to be in the room? Why am I there? Why have I been invited? What are we there to discuss? What's the outcome that somebody wants? That already gives me the framework for what I'm going to maybe want to say. And then we go into planning. How can we plan the words that we're going to say? Well, this little matrix by a guy called Andrew Obella is really, really useful. I use it all the time, both for meetings, but also for planning content for presentations. And you fill in the 4 boxes. What does my audience think right now about this? And what do I want them to think after? What does my audience do right now? And what do I want them to do after? And that change from now to after is what helps you put the content together. Now, because I have this obsession with storytelling and emotional connection, I added an extra column in, which is feel. And feel is how you get to what will emotionally connect to somebody. So you need to say, what does my audience feel now, and what do I want them to feel after? And if you use that as the framework, the feel answer will give you how you can emotionally connect to somebody. And the think do is all about trust and letting somebody rationally process that decision. And I always say, if you want somebody to make a decision in your favor, it's emotion plus trust. Okay, what else can we do? Well, what about preparation? And there's a lot of things that we can do in preparation. The first is, everybody knows this, but lots of people don't do it, is eliminate any problems that you can ahead of time. If you're going to go, even if it's into a meeting and it's not like a big presentation, but get there ahead of time and make sure your Wi-Fi, your camera, your mic, the lighting, everything is set up, because what you don't want in those final minutes before you start talking, you suddenly discover something's not working, because that erodes at your confidence before you give that talk. So the other thing you can think about is, what about when things go wrong? Because they will go wrong. It happens to all of us. We have those moments where we forget what we're going to say, or it all comes out in a jumble and it didn't sound like it sounded in my head. But what you can do if you've planned ahead of time is you have this key sentence of, this is my main point. So you can stop talking, because most people fill silence with continuing to talk a lot, but you can pause, say your main point, and then you can almost invisibly hand the microphone over to somebody. You can say, hey, Steve, I'd love to know what you think about this. Or just to the room, hey, I'd love to know what you think about this. So there's always ways that you can even plan get outs when you're actually talking. You can also look at how you can project confidence. I'm the same as everybody. I catch myself saying, yeah, I've got this idea. It's a bit silly. I'm not sure. Maybe we could do this. That doesn't project confidence. If you say, I've got this idea, I think it could be transforming. This is what I think, think about the language, and you have to find that balance between not coming across as aggressive or too assertive, but coming across as confident. And that's normally to do with tone and volume as much as anything. Okay. What about interruptions? If somebody interrupts you, because that's also happens a lot, because maybe somebody else is feeling a bit nervous and just wants to get into the conversation. Well, if you've planned and spent a lot of time and effort on what you're going to say, you don't want somebody to suddenly jump in and steal the limelight. So what you can say if you're quick is, hey, Simon, I really want to hear what you say, because I know it's going to add value to this, but can I just finish my thought, because I need to finish, I need to get it out. Or if you're the most senior person in the room, then you get, if you're the most senior person in the room, it's your job to jump in and maybe salvage that situation and just get somebody to, kind of hold it just for a few seconds and let the other person finish. So all of these things really help. Now, the final thing is practice, and practice is the boring one that nobody wants to really think about. So this is a presentation that I gave about 1.5 years later from that first video you saw. And it's where I truly, truly started to understand the power of practice. Because the first question I got after I came off the stage was, wow, how do you look so calm? How do you look so confident up there? And I said to the guy, first of all, I'm not. I still have that feeling underneath. I'm just managing it a bit better. But what you didn't see yesterday is when I arrived to Berlin is I didn't go sightseeing for the day. I didn't do normal work. I spent 8 hours holed up in my hotel room practicing that presentation again and again and again till I just couldn't hear the words anymore. So invest time in practicing, because that definitely gives you more confidence. So we need to be like these two and invest the time to make it come together. So to bring us home, let's talk a bit about equipment and tech, because this is for me a little bit of the surprise one. And do yourself a favor and invest in lighting. It can literally take 10 years off you, because all of us these days are spending it like this. We're looking at a computer and generally looking at ourselves in these Zoom calls all the time. And we're all the same. We all have those days where we go, God, I look rough this morning. And actually, you can limit that feeling a bit by using things like lights, because lights instantly make it look much better if you're, been in a dark room or something like that. So invest a little bit of money in lights. If you can, either invest money in a better camera to put on top of the computer, or try and move the room around that you can have your laptop in front of the window. So the window's in front of you, because the natural light is by far the best. But these two things, and things like lifting the computer up so the camera is eye level, all of these things can help boost your confidence, even though there's something small. And again, a lot of the platforms now have this lovely touch up my appearance thing. Use them. It's also good for things like confidence. So that's about it. To summarize, self-talk, positive self-talk, super, super critical. Don't think about what people are thinking about you in the room. Focus on the audience and how you're helping them. Have a motto to help eliminate that kind of demon voice and bring out the angel voice. Obviously spend the time to both plan, use things like the think, do, feel matrix, and spend lots of time in practice. And obviously finally, spend some money on tech and stuff like that. So that's it. You're ready. You're ready to go be your best self in that meeting. So thanks. Hope you found that useful.
Spencer, I feel so ready. I literally feel like going somewhere and giving a presentation now. I'm not delivering a keynote for Remote Future Summit, but oh my God, I was blown away. People who are with us live were blown away. We called you a remote wizard, a magician. People are just amazed by your presentation. We have a bunch of questions, so I'm gonna share them with you now.
Okay.
What do you do if someone is hijacking a meeting and won't stop talking, or is really disruptive continually? What would you advise?
Well, this is a great question, because it's a really hard one to answer, and context is really important. So, for example, like if you're in a room with a lot of people and it's more like you're standing up giving a presentation, actually that's a lot easier to control, because somebody who's like really trying to interrupt or trying to be problematic, you can quite publicly say, after the second or third time where you've tried to answer that person and deal with it, you can say, look, I can see this is really important to you. I would love to get into this in more detail, but maybe we can talk after I finish the presentation. And what that does is very publicly make it hard for that person to then continue to kind of interrupt. If it's in a meeting context where it's like you're with a few colleagues, that's harder to do. I think, you have to use some of the techniques where, I said earlier about, just saying, I really want to hear what you say, big up that person's ego. Like, I really want to hear what you say. I think it's going to add a lot of value, but can I just finish my point, because I think it's important to say. And if that doesn't work, then maybe not in that particular meeting, but I would, I'm always a big fan of, every superhero has their sidekick. So Batman always has Robin. So who's your Robin that's going to help you in the meeting to back you up? And that could be a colleague. It could be somebody more senior. So maybe it's more of a longer term thing, but yeah, great question, and not super easy to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think you made a very good point here. We have another one. Is there any way to do a presentation like you did and have different options of images to use depending on audience reaction to surveys, for example? Now you can brag a little bit about the software and all the magic you're using. Go on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one of the things, we saw people starting to do this even before the last, few months of what's been going on. But, conversational presenting has been something that's been growing in the last 2 years because, gone are the days where anybody can just rock up in a pitch environment and just say, okay, here's what I need to say for 20 minutes, because people already have a lot of information about you, your company, what's going on. So the name of the game these days is you need to ask for directions. I've got these 3 things and I can talk about any one of them. And depending on which one interests them, you can just go to that area and talk about that content. So you might have, a whole load of content with you, but you might only present 25% of it depending on what they say. So I think it takes a bit of practice, but it's a super powerful way to do it. And it also has some really interesting like neuroscience elements to it, because if you're, say, doing a webinar, for example, and you say, okay, I've got 5 things that I can talk about here to do with storytelling, but I've only got time for 3. Which ones do you want? And what happens is people, like, dopamine spikes through the roof because it's fear of loss. It's like, not what am I going to get? What am I going to miss out on? And you can always then give them that stuff at the end. But again, so it can be a very powerful thing where you say to somebody, you're in the driving seat, you're going to give directions. But yeah, and in Prezi video, for sure, you can do that.
Yeah, I think you got everyone sold on the Prezi. So at least reading from the comments, I mean, everyone wants to try it out. So I guess you're the best. You're the best example of how the product can be used. So thank you so much for being with us. That was extremely insightful. And well, again, thank you for sharing all your presentation and meetings wisdom.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. And if people want to connect to me, find me on LinkedIn.
Thanks. Now, yeah, what a session. I mean, I'm still in all these moving elements and things I want to implement for the next keynotes and presentations I'm going to give. Wow. I think we all learned something from Spencer. So feel free to continue the conversation with him asynchronously. I know he's most active on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out to him there. While we're waiting for our next panel to start, let me just remind you to jump on a conversation happening on social media. So we have a hashtag Remote Future Summit where you can post anything about the conference, your takeaways, share them with the world, or just the things you've learned, or your own story about a meeting that maybe you attended and you have to present something there. What worked for you? And obviously in the context of our previous session about appearing on online meetings. So make sure to be a part of that conversation. I'm actually going to take a minute now, share my screen and show you all the things that are happening on Twitter. So let's see. Yeah, I shared this news about Spencer's session online to give him a shout out for a great presentation. So as you can see, there are a lot of tweets popping in here. Remote Future Summit is not trending yet, so you can help us make it trending on Twitter. Craig is sharing here, not only learn that being at home and having freely chosen to attend a conference helps you concentrate more, but it's a reason more of the information and aha moments are registered. Amazing. We also have our partners at Grok Remote sharing and tweeting live from the summit, so make sure to check all the bits of information they are sharing. We have a few tips from Emna's session, remote workers vital tip, take your breaks, schedule focus sessions of 2 hours. It has been scientifically proven that you only get in flow 2 hours at the time. Side comment, we are actually doing co-working deep work sessions at Remote How at our virtual co-working, so make sure to check them out as well. A reminder about our mural that we want to co-create with all of you. It will be shared also with our speakers, so feel free to check it out and add your post-its, the comments, the things that stood out to you from the previous session. So yeah, a lot of really cool tweets happening here. Make sure to be a part of this conversation and tweet something or post something on your LinkedIn about Remote Future Summit. Now let's move on to a panel about building healthy habits that can stick with you. I think that's something very important for anyone that's working remotely, to be able to control how we work, how we take breaks. So let me quickly introduce you to our panelists who will be joining us for this panel. So we will have with us Kaleem Clarkson. He's a husband, father, employee experience professional, remote work advocate, and a speaker. He is the Chief Operating Officer of Blend.me Incorporated, a consultancy that helps organizations improve the remote employee experience from onboarding to offboarding. With nearly 20 years of event planning and strategic operations experience, his passions revolve around helping others create a plan that inspires and motivates their employees to make connections and build meaningful relationships. We will have with us also Lorraine Lee. Lorraine is the first managing editor at Prezi, where she leads an editorial team focused on building the visual communications platform into a top content destination that educates and inspires users all over the world. Prior to Prezi, she was an editor at LinkedIn. She's also a proud member of Northwestern's Council of 100, an invite-only organization of NU women selected based on career trajectory, achievements, and commitment to mentoring. She is a Los Angeles native and currently resides in San Francisco. And let me also welcome with us Mike Adams. It's actually funny because I had a chance to meet Mike when we were with Remote How in the US a couple of months back ago. He's an experienced co-founder with demonstrated history of working in the computer software industry. He's skilled in many fields, but let me just mention a few: negotiation, ad tech, database, Ruby, and HTML. And he's now building a great startup that's going to change how we interact in meetings, take notes. He's a co-founder and CEO at Brains. So welcome everyone. It's my great pleasure to host this panel and meet you all. I see you are already with us online. Hi, let's wave to our online virtual audience. Great to have all of you here. Now I'm gonna kickstart by saying that I think we've seen the same top struggles for remote workers over the past years coming up in different studies around remote work. It's usually communication, loneliness, difficulties with being able to unplug after work. And with the pandemic in the background, I think that gotten even worse. And so habits, something we will be talking about today, I think that's something that can keep you grounded, keep you sane in the world that's becoming harder to live in and more unpredictable. The reality of working home is not always as rosy as it seems. So let's have a very open conversation here about how you all work remotely, how you function in this context. So let's kick off with me asking you a very simple question. What's your story? How long have you been working remotely, and how has it changed? How has your regular day changed before the pandemic and now? What's the reality for you? And let's start with Lorraine.
Great. Well, thank you, Magna, so much for inviting me to speak today. I'm really excited to meet all of you. So I started working from home early March. Prezi was really proactive and told us all, even before shelter-in-place orders got implemented, that we could work from home if we felt more comfortable, which much of the company took them up on. So I've been working since then, but Prezi in general has had a very flexible work from home policy. So I did work from home every now and then, even before COVID started. And I would say my day has stayed more or less the same. I start around 7:30 or 8. Our company is headquartered in Budapest, so we have a lot of morning meetings with the team there. And then I think the biggest change is that it's so easy, especially when this all started, to just work nonstop throughout the day. You don't have the normal distractions that come with coworker conversations in the snack room or over lunch. And so I had to make a really concerted effort to take those breaks and to have a clear start and end to my day.
Thanks for sharing that. Kylie, what do you want to add to the table? I think you can bring a little bit different perspective given your role as a father and husband. So what the day looked like for you before the COVID and what has changed?
Yeah, absolutely. And Magda, thank you so much for putting on this event. I really appreciate this. And it's nice to be on the screen with all these awesome panelists. So I appreciate that. I would say the biggest difference we started Blend in 2013, and I've been working remotely off and on since then. But I would say the biggest change is that with your family and schooling, really you're really forced to what we like to use the term work-life integration, not work-life balance, right? You're not two separate people. You're not two different beings. You're one being. So I would say that since COVID, we've been forced to integrate our personal lives with our work lives. So I think that has definitely been a change. But there is one thing I would like to say to everybody who is working remotely, who maybe this is their first time. I think it's very, very, very critical for all of us in the remote workspace to acknowledge that COVID-19 is not the normal remote work. So we're all lonely. Normally we have meetups, we have events. We really have intentional planned human interactions. And right now we do not have any of that. So I do want to kind of just start off to acknowledge that these are difficult times, even for seasoned remote workers such as GitLab and Automatic and companies that have been doing it for a long time. But I would have to say the biggest change in my life has been really being more productive early in the day. I get up a little bit earlier just so that I can have some of that quiet time, and then not beating myself up when we kind of have to help with the homework a little bit. So I'd say that's really the biggest difference.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for bringing the point about this being a very unique circumstances that we all have to work under. I think we should keep on emphasizing that on almost every session for all the people that are new to remote work and might be overwhelmed by everything that's happening. Back to Mike. What has changed for you comparing to before the COVID, your daily routine, and now?
Hey everyone, great to meet you. Yeah, absolutely. I think that we at Grain have been remote first from day one. And so I learned later that remote first was kind of like the term to describe not a fully remote company like a GitLab, but a company that puts every employee in the same flow of information. And so what that means is that even in our in-person office, we had technology setups that would ensure and practices and culture that would ensure that every meeting would get recorded. It would get shared using our own product, so that regardless of what time zone you're in or whether you're in the office or not, you would still have access to that flow of information. And so that's what remote first went for us. And so when COVID hit, it just meant that everyone was remote. So we made the transition from remote first to fully remote. And I would say that the transition from an information flow is absolutely seamless. Like, we haven't seen any drop off or challenge with regards to people getting the information that they need. I would say the biggest challenge that we've had has been more social and emotional. I think totally agree with the comment that this isn't normal remote work, right? This is a very, very different. And for me, I personally would not choose a fully remote situation. I love remote first, but I wouldn't choose a fully remote, because I love the in-person interactions. I love lunches. I love dinners. I love, those types of opportunities to interact and to be social with your team that are just so much harder. And while we can really upgrade our information flow workflows in a remote first or fully remote world to be even better than in person, it is certainly a challenge to, recognize and acknowledge that when it comes to the kind of interpersonal and the social side, it just isn't the same. And there are things that we can do that are really important, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about those, but that's been one of kind of the biggest things for me in this transition. And so another thing is I moved. So we were in the San Francisco Bay Area for 10 years. I have 3 children, living in a, very small house with, 1 bathroom in it as my children got older was causing a lot of stress for me and for my wife and for our kids. And without the need to be, physically present in the San Francisco Bay Area anymore, we made the decision. We actually been planning for a long time to move to Southern California, and it's been great. So I have space, I have an office. It's been transition, and that's one of the main things just for me personally that I have learned is having experienced this kind of like really uncomfortable, challenging living situation that you don't really live in that much because you're off at the office. It is important to be able to have that space. And I would say that those that have really been working fully remote for a long time have almost by definition been optimizing for that. They're not living in big cities where they're paying a ton of rent for small spaces. They're able to live further away from city centers where they can afford more and have a more comfortable situation. But I would say that, for me, as far as habits go, it's having a dedicated office. When we have family in town staying, this is a Murphy bed behind me that pulls down and becomes a bed. When someone's staying on that bed, my productivity goes down. It's a fact. And so I've had to learn that and recognize that I really need this kind of structured place to work from, to be able to get my work done. Because I definitely almost underappreciated the value of a commute, going into an office, having these clear boundaries, because especially with kids, I've just had to be more intentional and deliberate about setting those boundaries.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for being so open and sharing about your experience and how you have to find a way to work and coexist with your family. I think that's something a lot of people can relate here. And I also loved the point you made that you wouldn't choose being fully remote. And I think that's also something we should highlight here. I think remote is not either you love it and you go 100% remote, or you have to work only in the office. I think there are a lot of flexible options in between that you can choose from, and you should be comfortable with doing so. So thank you so much for mentioning that on this panel. Now, we've all seen and came across different studies on how remote work is boosting one's productivity and how it can increase. I think the most popular was one made by Stanford on the call center employees from China. But also from a very human perspective, sometimes I'm like, it really takes an effort to stay on task, to not get distracted, and to make sure that I am productive. It's not around a magical switch that happens when I'm starting to work remotely. So I wanted to ask you about the tips and strategies you're using to ensure that you're staying productive. And maybe let's start with Khalid.
Okay, so tips to stay productive. So I love to procrastinate. I think all of us kind of generally procrastinate a little bit. And I guess the example I kind of want to use, I was thinking about this earlier, was that PhD candidates in my prior life, shout out to KSU, Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. In my previous life, I was in higher ed. And most of the people that we worked with all had their PhDs. And actually, my sister Neoma, shout out. I'm going to give lots of shout outs during this thing. I like to give shout outs. Shout out to my sister Neoma Mullins, who just actually submitted her dissertation this week at UGA. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is about 2% of the population, I believe, have their PhD. So it's a very difficult task, right? And most people who enter these programs are brilliant to begin with. And a majority of PhD candidates, only 56% complete it, because it's hard. And the ones that complete it, almost everybody that are my colleagues that had PhDs, they were all a part of a writing accountability group. You just kind of find that fascinating. And most of your professors that you took a class from, there's a really, really, really good chance that when they were doing their dissertation, they were part of a accountability group that met, because there is no when you finish your work, they call it all but dissertation. You finish your coursework, but you have to write your paper, and that's over a course of a year. So you can't procrastinate on this huge project. So for me, I've actually kind of used some of that. I've joined a few different apps and different platforms. There's this one called now I'm drawing a blank, of course, during my talk. But accountability groups. Find somebody that you respect a lot and don't want to let down. And I feel like when you put your goals in the things that you need to get accomplished out in the open space, and somebody that you really care a lot about professionally as well, it just, for me anyway, it really kicks me in the butt to get going. So I am a firm believer. All you coaches out there, you're wonderful. If money is a motivator for you, so if you pay a coach, then there's a good chance that you're going to complete that. But for me, it's really about connecting with people that I respect, and putting out my goals to them, and that holds me accountable. So I would say that is a really, really important strategy to utilize.
Definitely. I think you brought a very valid point with staying accountable and looking for others who can help you to do that. So, Lauren, what would you add on being productive and staying accountable? I know that's a lot. We probably could, just do a session titled Staying Accountable and Productive, but, some key tips from your experience, something that has worked for you.
Yeah, I use a number of different strategies and tools that I found to be really helpful. So the first, simplest one that I think all of us can implement is to try to take our full lunch break. So when you're working from home and you're just, making something quickly or getting delivery and you don't have that coworker to, talk to about your weekend, lunch will end in like 15 minutes. And so it's really important to just make sure you have that time to yourself to take the break, because otherwise, it's so easy to sit at the computer all day, not take any breaks. That really easily leads to burnout. So we don't want that. So I think taking your lunch break is very important to keep in mind. And then there's a number of tools that I really like to use. So it's a bit of a long list, so get ready. But the first is Clockwise. And so Clockwise is a really great tool to help optimize meeting times. And so what it will do is try to group the meetings together and then give you a few hours of time each day, what they call focus time. And so that allows you to do more strategic work or to get done all the things that you need to get done. And the great thing about that app is that if you and multiple coworkers have it and you have a meeting time together, it will optimize based on both of your schedules. The second, of course, I have to give a shout out here to Prezi Video. I think for anyone who was just in Spencer's session, you saw the magic of Prezi Video, but I use this for async communications as well as live meetings. And I think it just adds a little something extra, keeps people more engaged. You can zoom in and out, and to have the visual here alongside you and keeping your face front and center has been really great for optimizing our meetings. I also use an app called Time Out. So it reminds me at the intervals that I select to, take a look away from the computer to rest my eyes, and you can set the interval time for that. And then syncing Google Calendar with Slack is another good technique to use. So what that does is it will mute your Slack notifications once you're in a meeting, and then it also changes your status icon so that people know that you're in a meeting and that's why you're not responding. So those are just a few tools and tips that I like to use that I have found to be really useful during remote work.
Thanks for sharing that. Now, Mike, while giving your intro, I was sharing that you have founded a few successful enterprises, companies. Hopefully they evolved into enterprises. But I have to ask you now for some tools and software recommendation, if you have any, for better productivity, staying accountable, something you're using daily to make sure you're on track.
Yeah, absolutely. So my last company, we built an online school in the back of Zoom. And so the kind of premise was that you shouldn't have to go to San Francisco to learn the skills that you need to get a job. And so in 2014, we built the very first online coding boot camp at the company I was part of the leadership team of, called Hack Reactor. And then I started my next company called Mission U out of that. It's very similar to Lando School, but more focused on kind of broad, 1 year long to learn, all the skills you need and replace college. And I would say there's using Zoom to meet is one thing, but specifically we use Zoom's recording functionality. And I've had this as a huge part of my thesis. It's the reason I'm building the company Grain that I am now, that's kind of built around this thesis, is voice and video data as a first-class citizen, especially in asynchronous workflows. So one of the things we always kind of think about is this almost bimodal of like, you've got asynchronous, which is usually text-based and email and Slack and messages and documents. And then you've got synchronous, which is Zoom, and you've got, video meetings and Hangouts and whatever else it may be, or what was traditionally in person. But now that everything's online, you're really already you're a button click away from being able to generate data that can go from the live synchronous communication into the world of asynchronous communication. And that button is just the record button in Zoom. And so at Mission U, we built this platform that really recognized that type of data, voice and video, qualitative data was extremely valuable. And it was only as useful as the systems that we set up in advance to make sure that we were capturing it and it was getting to where it needed to go. And I would say at Grain, the core insight of the product that's been kind of a discovery process along the way has been that, yes, automating that flow of information and incentivizing and making it easier to capture it and to get from synchronous to asynchronous, but also making the video files themselves easier to work with. And that's the kind of core of the product and tools that we're building, called Grain, which transcribes recorded conversations and then makes it as simple as selecting the text in the transcript that you want to share and then clicking a button. And then that small portion of the recording lives on its own independent link that you can share and you can embed in Slack and you can push into other destinations. And so in line with the kind of conversation we're having earlier about workflows and around some of the things that we need to change in a remote world, is one thing that we've changed is we've started doing all hands every week, and we record every one of those all hands. And we have a shout out culture. So I love Kaleem's comment about shout outs to his family and to, those. We do the same thing in our team. Every single all hands religiously. We went from once a month all hands to once a week all hands after COVID. And we've always included this shout out culture at the end. And we'll note and kind of create highlight clips of the shout outs that everyone gets and make sure that kind of gets shared and goes to the person who's being appreciated and getting recognized. And so it's not just getting recognized in the moment, but it's kind of like building, memory log of useful things. And the other thing I'll comment is it is incredibly important as we struggle to find human social connections, especially as we're building, so many of us are building products, to stay connected to our users. In an in-person world, you can have them come by your office, you can throw a meetup, you can have people come by all the time. But in a remote world, you really have to make it an effort to connect and to set up conversations over video to really collect feedback. I try to do 3 to 5 customer conversations a week. I had 2 yesterday, and they are, I would say, my largest source of energy. They're my largest source of energy that gets me excited, that gets me motivated, and that gets me connected to the work that we're doing. And my job is to make sure that if I'm doing that not only are other people doing that, we can't have every conversation, every person in the company talk to a user every week. but that we leverage the recordings of those conversations and kind of cut them into the parts that were kind of those juicy moments where a user was expressing how the product has like helped them to cope or to improve a workflow or really changed their life in a meaningful way, and ensuring that information gets the broadest distribution possible in kind of the richest original format possible, which obviously in person would be the richest and video communication being that second richest. And I would say that those are, some of the main things that I tend to be biased towards, this thesis of voice and video data as a first-class citizen in solving problems for information flow from the world synchronous to asynchronous. And so that's been kind of my number one. But the other one I'll say is I finally adopted Asana religiously, and it has been game-changing, moving from a world of like taking my to-do list and my notes in Asana in just Notepad on Apple and over into Asana, where it's integrated with my calendar, it's integrated with my email inbox and pushing things from my inbox over into Asana. And I would say that's made a huge difference for my productivity, as I found that I just need to be, kind of more tools to stay on top of my projects I'm managing.
Well, I think we got a bunch of great strategies, either if you're managing a team or a company, or if you just want to better manage your own productivity. So feel free to choose whichever applies to you the most.
Can I
Oh, Magda, I've remembered something. I remember something.
Yes.
Growth Club. I couldn't forget. It was going to bother me the whole time. So Growth Club is, and shout out to you, Max. I joined Growth Club probably 6 months ago. And basically, you're matched with other founders and other leaders of companies. And what I love about that is, as a COO myself, I know that I'm going to be matched with someone in kind of like my space that's kind of dealing with the same challenge. And the difference with Growth Club and like maybe Lunch Club or these other one-on-one matching things is that you put in your goals at the end of each call, and then the next person that you meet the next week will ask you, how did you meet your goals? So I have a call on Friday, and I'm concerned because it's like my last week's goals are not done yet. So tonight, I'm going to work on those things and get them done so that when I meet with my next founder or COO, that I have met my goals. So the app is called Growth Club.
That's the spirit. Mike, you wanted to add something.
Oh, there's just one more. It's kind of a little zany, but I would say Strava has been one of the biggest benefits to my life since COVID happened. It is just, I had no exposure to Strava before, but I bought a used road bike off of Craigslist in February. All right, Kaleem, yeah, find me on Strava. We'll for the exact reasons, it holds me so accountable.
Can you, for those who
on there, and I want to see their rides, and they want to see my rides, and it helps with my mental health to just exercise.
Mike,
go ahead.
Can you just explain to those who haven't met Strava,
yeah, totally.
What is it all about?
Strava is Facebook for running, biking, and swimming, and any other kind of like outdoor fitness-oriented sports. So Apple Watch is like the data generation. So you just start, or it really can be anything, but I use Apple Watch for most of it. So you can do an indoor cycle or an outdoor cycle, an indoor run, an outdoor run, whatever it may be. But long endurance athletes tend to use it. It's kind of been like the core audience for a long time, but it's becoming increasingly more mainstream where just anybody doing anything active, you just post it on Strava. And it is honestly the most positive reinforcing social media network that exists, because it is my actual friends. And my quick story on this is I got into Strava, and then I found out that one of my friends, who was in a mastermind group that we held each other accountable professionally, was training for a triathlon. And I was like, I want to train for a triathlon. And so then we held each other accountable, and we decided to sign up for a 70.3 race, which is like a half Ironman. And they all got canceled due to COVID. And I totally would have been devastated. But because of Strava, we decided to do our own race. And we went to St. George, Utah. I totally didn't finish. I came up short. It was way too hot. But I loved it. And it's like, I'm working out more than I otherwise would. And I would say that as we think about accountability for, these business projects, making sure that we're, performing our work, it is so important that we like take care of ourselves as well. And I would say that, 80% of the positive mental health, kind of feelings and vibes that I have right now are just coming from the goals that I'm setting to go on a run and a swim and a bike, and the accountability that I have in my social network. And now Kaleem, is going to be part of that. So I'm excited to make sure I'm posting
I'll be
my
joining you out.
runs so he can give me props.
Nothing better than after you go for a bike ride and you feel like, you know, you're going to die, to just see somebody give you a like.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that like you went on the run, it's really cool. I love Strava. Shout outs to Strava.
Yeah, lots of shout outs. And if anyone from Strava is watching this, you know, we're open for a partnership next year.
I seriously love their product so much.
Just saying. And now, you kind of touched upon a very important thing here, because our ability to focus is obviously influenced by our lifestyle and our like choices about what we eat, whether we exercise or not. Still, I think a lot of people are not getting this, but for me, that's kind of obvious. So we need to make sure that in our daily routine, we are embedding the activities that keep us in a good shape. So if you're not a Strava member, and if you're not using the app, Lorraine, what would you recommend? What keeps you in a good shape?
Yeah, I'm sorry to say I don't like running very much. I did use Strava way back when, but it wasn't for me, but great app. So for me, I've been doing ClassPass online HIIT classes. So those are about 30 minutes each. And so for someone like me who doesn't really like working out, it's a good amount of time to just get it done and also get in a good workout. And then I also do restorative yoga, which I think is really important because we've been sitting at our desks all day. And then even beyond that, you know, doing simple stretches like a spinal twist or a cat-cow or even foam rolling in between meetings. Those are things you can do really quickly, and I think they have big impact.
Definitely. I'm a beginning yogi myself, so I can't really recommend more yoga. If you haven't tried it, just give it a try. I was against it some time ago, but COVID made me change my approach towards yoga and actually finding a time to do it. So definitely recommend all of you to at least try it.
What got you from being a skeptic to actually doing it?
Well, okay, that's a funny story. I got locked in Tenerife for a lockdown. So I traveled there before the COVID hit, and I stayed there in a co-living space throughout. What was meant to be 3 weeks turned out to be 3 months. And so we had a yoga teacher with us, and we were doing a daily yoga classes. And that was, I would say, main activity of the day, something I could do with others and something I could do to start my day. So I actually made it my habit to start my day with yoga. And before going back home, I made sure I already ordered my yoga mat, and I just continue with yoga. It's something that really helps me to start a day. It is much more energizing than a coffee. So whichever physical activity, if you can try to force yourself a bit, maybe into doing it for some time, you can actually adapt it into your morning routine. I'm not a morning person at all. Before that, I thought I'm not even able to do any physical activities in the morning, but that has changed. It was just a matter of choosing the right activity for me, for my morning routines. But thanks for asking this. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to share this story. So one of the things that I think we still have to talk about when it comes to building habits and making sure you are able to organize your day and be the best version of yourself is the work-life balance issues. So in reality, working from home can be much harder than we think, and finding that sense of harmony. You mentioned, Kalim, work-life integration, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe if you can extend a little bit and tell us a little bit more about this concept and share some tips for those who are struggling with finding this balance, integration, and actually making sure that they both have some personal life and professional life in a similar space.
Yeah, just to kind of, a little bit restate what I talked about earlier. It's like, you're one being, so you're not A or B, you're together, right? Like you're one person. So I feel like a lot of times people believe that, okay, I need to work and then I need to do this and then I need to turn it off and then turn it on. And that's very difficult to kind of turn the switch and then turn it back on. But if you're integrating, there are times where, my partner, she will have a meeting, and then help with the schoolwork, and then have another meeting, and then maybe write a blog post, take a break, go work out. That's really an integration of your day versus before. It's kind of like budgeting. I had a great talk that I was involved in the other night, where he was talking about estimating and using the language of budgeting instead of estimates, because the words have some sort of definition behind it. Shout out Matthew O'Brien. And basically the idea here is that you can budget your day differently, and really trying to understand that, hey, you know what? My budget is no longer commute to the office. You think about, you can only be awake for so long, right? Everyone's like, oh, I'm so busy. Everyone's busy, right? You're only awake for so long. So before, you used to commute to your office maybe, right? And you had some time to think about it on your way into work, think about how your day is gonna pan out. Then you got to the office and you did some work. But a lot of people have this perception where they worked so hard because they were in the office all day. But like what I like to say is, don't trip. You were interrupted multiple times in a day. You talked at the water cooler, so you weren't as productive as you thought you were before, right? So now you have this budget of time, and the idea is to look at your budget of time and be realistic with yourself and understand that, hey, I need to work out. I need to spend time with my family. I need to do this. Look at your calendar and now integrate those in your calendar. Put that time on your calendar to work out. I put on my calendar for tomorrow bike ride, because I want to go for this 10-mile mountain bike ride so that I can, so Mike can give me a like on Strava. So I would say definitely don't be so hard on yourself. I think that's the big thing. Like, oh, I'm not getting anything done because I had to help with my kids' homework. I had to take the dog for multiple walks. Well, you weren't doing, like, a lot of people were not like just crushing it all day in the office. And I just kind of feel like that is just this perceived notion. The other thing that Lorraine mentioned that I thought is very critical. I'm going to say it wrong, but I believe the Pomodoro concept is totally accurate. If you do not take a break, you actually cannot. You can only focus for so long. There's really, I'm a multitasker. That's the worst term in the world, I think. But you can only focus for so long. So timed breaks, even if you don't work out, what I felt like worked for me the best was when I was using that timer. I get a time, and then I would just go for a walk once around our complex, 4 minutes, then get right back to work. So I would say just look at the tasks that you have to do. Look at how many hours that you're awake. It's kind of crazy. It's budgeting, right? And schedule those times to get it done. And then just be realistic with yourself. If you know that your dog or your kids are going to drive you crazy during, the peak times, the peak office times before, have a conversation with your team, your supervisor, etc., and say, look, I'm going to do a lot of this work asynchronously. And for me, I'm going to get up early and bang out some of this work that takes a lot of quiet conversational time, and then budget the rest of your day. So that's more integrating versus saying A or B.
Yeah, and I think in the current context, it's very important expectation to have that I can't really say I'm entering now a room where I'm supposed to work, so I'm going to be only a professional worker because someone may interrupt. But also, on the other hand, something you were saying, that you have to make sure you are actually budgeting the time for the things you want to have the time for. So let's wrap up with a question about forming habits. So, there are different studies telling that it takes 21 days or even up to 60 days to really form a habit. So I want to hear from you, what's your strategy to make sure you really are able to implement something into your routine if you want to try it out? So how you are forming your habits. Feel free to share some stories or give the shout outs, and maybe Lorraine.
Yeah, well, I think as Kaleem and Mike referenced earlier, accountability is going to be a really big part in that. But for me, I know, what works well is just starting off really, really small and something that almost seems very easy to do. So for example, incorporating a walk into my day. Initially when COVID started, I just woke up and then I just started work. But now I incorporate a walk at the start of my day, at the end of my day, to really mimic my walk to and from work. And so initially it seemed kind of daunting. There was so much work to do. There was no time for a walk, but I just started off very small, one lap around the block, and then next day or next week or next month, whatever feels realistic and manageable for you, just start adding a little bit more. Maybe you do 2 blocks. Maybe you choose a different landmark that you're trying to reach when you go on a walk in your neighborhood. I think it's really important when you're coming up with a new habit to try to integrate it into your life as much as possible, because that's going to be the thing that's really it's going to help you sustain it over time and not just be like a one-off thing that you're able to do for a month and then you burn out or get bored of it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing that. Mike, do you want to add something on how you are forming habits in your professional and everyday life?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a couple thoughts. One is willpower is a limited resource. We only have so much of it. Colleen was talking about that earlier. Like you have to recognize the limits of your willpower. You have to. Like, it is a fixed, finite resource. And so every time you're forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do, and you have to make a decision, it's going to drain that willpower. And so there's the author of Dilbert is a guy named Scott Adams who, it's not even his system, but he's the one who exposed me to it. Is this mentality of systems, not goals, where what you really want to do is have a system that ensures the outcome that you want, instead of having a goal where you're like, well, I have a goal to wake up, and go on a walk. And it's like, no, I have a system where I put my shoes by the door with my socks in them, or I go to sleep in my running and my walking clothes, so that when I wake up in the morning, I don't have to make a decision. I just walk. I wake up and I walk out the door, and then I come back and then I take my shower, and the decision's kind of already been made because the system, and it doesn't actually require any willpower. You're just a zombie at that point. You just follow the intentionality of previous you. And I would say my last thought is I read this book when I first became a dad called The Whole Brain Child. And it really had a big impact on me because what it taught me was about how, as human beings, we have these kind of amygdalic responses. And that's what children do. They're basically, especially babies, they're only responding to what their amygdala tells them to do to stay alive and to stay, to stay safe. But as we get older, we continue to be driven by our amygdalic response, and we, kind of caveman try to brute force our willpower to develop these habits. And living an intentional life is one that recognizes that just responding the way that your body, your instincts say that you're supposed to do is unlikely to result in the habit or in the outcome that you want. And so planning in advance and really thinking with intention about what is it that what do I really want out of this goal? And the last thing I'll say is, I said last thing, this is my second segment, last thing, is it's also from Scott Adams, but it's huge for me is kind of actualization. You could say, I want to do a triathlon, that's kind of a goal, or you could say, I am a triathlete. So along my career, I became a software engineer, and it was the weirdest moment where I didn't go to school to code, and then all of a sudden I had a job as a software engineer at table. And it was a publicly traded software company, and I was like, this is the weirdest thing in the world. So I'm a software engineer now. No one came down and dawned upon me I just started calling myself a software engineer. Someone gave me a job as a software engineer. I'd learned the skills along the way, but there's this moment where I became a software engineer. And I would say when it becomes developing these habits, give yourself permission to believe in yourself. Give yourself permission to actualize and to be the type of person who goes on a walk. I am a walker. I am a triathlete. I am a software engineer. I am whatever. And it's so much easier to live your life with intention and set up the systems of what people like you do. And and you become that person as soon as you make up your mind of becoming that person. It's a kind of small psychological thing, but it's made all the difference for me.
Yeah, for sure. That is very powerful. Thanks for sharing this. I'm gonna take it away for myself for sure. Now let's wrap up with one last advice and try to make it really one advice, one sentence, maybe two, that you want to leave our audience with. And if you were mentioning any apps during this session, just repeat them, because everyone keeps on asking, what was the name of that app? What was the name of that accountability group? So one very short advice and the apps you were mentioning. Let's start with Lorraine.
All right, my one piece of advice would be to have empathy for yourself. So many people, I hear from so many of my friends, I should be doing this, I shouldn't be doing this, I should feel this way, I shouldn't feel this way. And that just adds unnecessary burden and stress to your life that you don't need. This is a really difficult situation, so just be kind to yourself and do what makes you happy if you can. The apps I mentioned, Clockwise, Prezi Video, Timeout, and then syncing Google Calendar with Slack.
Cool. Colleen, you're up next.
I would say think about integration versus work-life integration versus work-life balance. You don't have to be A or B, be one. Also, get some sleep. It's very important right now. We all need strong immune systems, so get some sleep. The other thing is the actualization. I have a notebook, and it works. Writing it down and feeling about, really connecting with your heart as to why you're doing something. There's an end goal always. Like, I want to be healthy to live longer, be by my kids. So find a bigger purpose for why you're doing things. And the other thing is like vices. We all have our own little vices. Like, I love chocolate. So you know what? Use some of those. Like, use it. Like, give yourself a pat on the back with a piece of chocolate. Just don't overindulge. There you go.
And the name of the accountability group?
Yes, accountability groups, no doubt. That was Growth Club. That was the one I'm thinking. And there's a ton of other apps out there.
Thanks.
Watch the video.
Over to Mike.
Sure. Just, I think sharpen the axe is a phrase that I would say is just measure twice, cut once. Just be intentional and thoughtful in kind. I think one of the ways to be kind to yourself is to not always put yourself under the gun to make a decision. Like, plan, think in advance, set yourself up for success. And the other one is kind of put your money where your mouth is. Like, I'll commit to things that I'm going to do with my kids during the day. I'll say in the morning, like, hey, you want to play soccer during your lunch break? And now I'm playing soccer during the lunch break. And if I didn't do that, then I probably wouldn't. Same thing with like buying, a bike or, exercise equipment. Like, when you make that financial investment, it really, helps you to get the kind of the habit and the outcome that you're looking for. Apps, the product that we're building for my company is called grain.co. The other products I mentioned were Zoom, Asana, and then Strava, Strava. It's the only non-toxic social network.
Thank you. I think that's a great wrap. It was a pleasure. It was fun. I think people came out inspired. They learned something. So I think we can all, give ourselves a virtual high five for delivering great panel. Thank you so much. And well, until the next time.
Thank you, Magda. You did great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone. And for all our attendees, I'm just going to remind you that we're now heading to a break. So feel free to check out networking sessions, breakout rooms on our platform. And if you haven't yet, if you're not watching us on Remote How platform, make sure to register and go there. This is where we hang out during the break, during the breaks. Yes, a period, I should add. Last but not least, we will be back with the third panel very, very soon. So hold on, and we'll be back with our stream for the third block at 3 p.m. ET with an amazing lineup of keynotes about how to better lead your remote teams. Lots of great things are there, so make sure to join us live.